Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of the trailer for Scream 7, coming February 7th, 2026. This 7th entry of the Scream franchise features the returns of Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, and the screenwriter of the original 1996 Wes Craven film, and writer some of the sequels, Kevin Williamson, now directing. And yeah, you probably heard Matt Lillard's voice in there as Stu, and I'm gonna explain how the hell that could be possible in this frame-by-frame breakdown of every Easter egg and reference you missed in this trailer. And if you're enjoying extending spooky season as much as I am, check out my analysis of the original slasher film Halloween over on the Witching Hour channel, and support New Rockstars directly with some Ghostface gear in the form of this Face Your Fears shirt available at nerdriot.shop. Okay, spoiler warning for all 6 previous Scream films. To talk about the details in this video, yeah, I'm gonna have to spoil some of the twists and reveals in all of the other films. Scream, as in the 5th one that came out in 2022, and Scream 6 in 2023. So the Scream 7 trailer opens with Stu Macher's home in Woodsboro, California. Yes, the location of the final act in the 1996 Scream film, and a location that was revisited in the 5th film. This murder house has now been transformed into a grim psycho killer themed Airbnb, with this franchise once again leaning into the whole meta commentary of the way society is profiting off of the Ghostface murders with the in-universe Stab film franchise. 2 tourists played by Jimmy Tatro from the American Vandal series and Michelle Randolph from the Taylor Sheridan shows park right out front and tour this nice house. On the floor here you can see 2 corpse outlines from the ending of the 2022 Scream. The one on the right would be for Richie Kirsch, Jack Quaid's character, and the one on the left with the knife outline would be for Amber Freeman. That was Mikey Madison's character after Tara shot her. And while the 2022 Scream film also returned to this house, the wallpaper and fixtures were a bit different in that film, but now the house has been restored to how it looked in 1996 with the red wallpaper, which could just be a Kevin Williamson detail, or whoever restored this house in universe really wanted it to look like it did on the night Sidney survived Billy and Stu. Covering the walls are movie posters and production stills from the Stab movie franchise, but this green one prominently in the shot I don't think would be from Stab from 1998 in the in-universe timeline, but maybe a more modern film in the franchise that would just share the title Stab, kind of like how the 2022 film, the 5th film, was also just called Scream. And that 5th sequel could just be based on the book that Gale Weathers would have written after the events of the 2022 film. The boyfriend lies in and takes a selfie in the body outline of Billy Loomis. That would be where he died in the 1996 film. And it's gotta be pretty creepy here because Billy was that kind of cute but murder-obsessed boyfriend in that film, and this guy might be playing into that trope as well as the boyfriend who's really here to scare his girlfriend. It might even be a killer. On the pedestal, you'll see Gale's framed book from the very first film, The Woodsboro Murders, that centered around the killing of Sidney's mother. This couple finds a motion-activated Ghostface killer animatronic. In this room, there are posters for Stab 4, 5, and 6, and another framed book reading Hollywood Horror that would be Gale's novelization featured in Scream 3. But then an actual Ghostface appears behind the girlfriend, but I'm assuming it's gonna be the boyfriend creeping up behind her to scare her. We hear this voice with the scream. Yes, that would be Roger L. Jackson coming back in this movie as the voice of Ghostface from his original iconic "Hello, Sidney" greeting.
Tatum, just get in the car.
Hello, Sidney.
The killer chases the girlfriend up the stairs, she smashes a light fixture on his head, and then he falls over the railing, and then she swings from the chandelier, and she tries to hold the banister with her legs, but then falls right onto the killer's knife. So this 7th film had a bit of a fraught development process. The 5th and 6th movies are directed by Radio Silence, the directing team of Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett from the Ready or Not and VHS franchises, and now, as of yesterday, the Mummy franchise. They ended up leaving development on the 7th film back in August of 2023. This was during the labor strikes of that year, and they cited scheduling conflicts with their film Abigail. So then Happy Death Day director Christopher Landon was brought in to replace them. But then in November 2023, Melissa Barrera, star of the previous 2 films, was fired by the studio for comments she made about Gaza. I strongly disagree with that firing, but I'm not going to get into it here. But then Jenna Ortega also left the film, later confirming that with Melissa leaving and Radio Silence no longer involved, she just wanted to part ways with the franchise. At this point, the film was creatively retooled to bring back the old stars. Christopher Landon left the film, and original Scream screenwriter Kevin Williamson was brought in to direct the film as of March 2024. The cast would now include Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, David Arquette coming back in some way as Dewey, Courtney Cox coming back as Gale Weathers, all of them we saw in the 5th film, and then the only ones returning from the previous film are Jasmine Savoy Brown and Mason Gooding as the twin siblings Mindy and Chad, Randy Meeks' niece and nephew. Joel McHale is joining the cast as Mark Evans, Sidney's husband. This was after Patrick Dempsey was going to come back from Scream 3, but he since left the project. Isabel May will be playing Sidney's daughter, Tatum Evans. Tatum, obviously named after Rose McGowan's character, Tatum Riley, Sidney's friend and Dewey's sister, and Stu's girlfriend who was killed in the garage door in the 1996 film. So now, Sidney gets a call from some unknown caller from Woodsboro, California.
Hello, Sidney. Did Did you miss me?
We see Sidney appearing at some crime scene beside an ambulance and a line of photographers. Now she's relocated to a town called Pine Grove, and we see the downtown area where the Dallas Cinema is playing Texas Chainsaw Massacre, another classic horror franchise with the final female trope. It's the Dallas Cinema because this film was shot in Dallas, Georgia between January and March of 2025. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. There was a time in my life years ago when I was so overwhelmed with my responsibilities at work and some major emotional life events that I knew I should reach out to a therapist, but even though I knew it, I just couldn't. Starting therapy felt like another unsurmountable challenge on my plate at a time when I barely had the bandwidth to do simple things like eat, shower, and leave the house. It got to a point where I had to just be like, okay, today, the one thing I'm going to do is make an appointment. And man, I wish BetterHelp had been around back then. It would have been so much easier. BetterHelp knows how much of a hurdle starting therapy can seem like, which is why they've gone to such lengths to make starting therapy easy. If you go to betterhelp.com/newrockstars, you'll find a short questionnaire to fill out. After you're done, BetterHelp will match you with a licensed therapist in as little as a couple days. If for whatever reason you and your therapist don't click, you can switch therapists at any time for no extra cost. BetterHelp accepts both HSA and FSA cards, making it easier to prioritize your mental health. In 2024 alone, over 137,000 people use their HSA or FSA benefits for therapy through BetterHelp. So be sure to use yours before they expire. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/newrockstars and get 10% off your first month of therapy. We see Sidney's daughter Tatum in her bedroom where she hears a whispered hello through the open window. On her wall, you can see a Duran Duran poster, and you can make out the word villain in the background near her, which could be a clue that Tatum might be one of the killers of this movie, similar to Jill Roberts in Scream 4, who was Sidney's cousin who resented the nonstop commentary about Sidney. Now, since Tatum is definitely being attacked in most of the shots of this trailer, she would have to be one of the killers for this to even be plausible. I don't even know if I buy it. Tatum walks with Celeste O'Connor and McKenna Grace's characters walking to school. Hey, 3 teenage girls walking to school in a supposedly safe suburb? Very Halloween coded there. Now Sidney's working for the Little Latte Coffee Company, responding to a caller like I'm sure she has with dozens of prank callers. Since we know this office will be the location where Tatum is trapped in, trying to keep Ghostface out, as Sidney will rush to get to her, maybe there's some wordplay in the name of the company here. Like Sidney would end up being a little late. In Sidney's house, she's there with her husband Mark. We see him later in the trailer and the man's a cop. But it seems like only Sidney and Tatum are going into a panic room here. Sidney kicks Ghostface away from the door and slams it shut. So the mother and daughter now creep through the walls, and Ghostface taps a knife on the wall to hear that it's hollow. But this tapping gesture is exactly what Stu did in the first film. Remember when he tapped the knife on the car window and held up the keys when Sidney was in Dewey's Jeep? Maybe it's another Stu clue, or maybe this is just someone who really studied and idolized Stu. But hey, if Sidney and Tatum were already in a perfectly designed safe room, why would they need to escape through the walls? Isn't it the point of the safe room that you don't have to escape it and you can just wait for the cops to arrive? The fact that they're trying to get out suggests to me that maybe this killer cut off the air or something to try to smoke them out. Tatum presses her ear against the wall to hear the taps, which reminds me of that guy Phil putting his ear to the bathroom stall wall in the opening sequence of Scream 2. Never do that. We see a police car driving up downtown Pine Grove. It looks too early for this street to be completely empty, so maybe Pine Grove is under a curfew. Tatum tells Sidney that she wants to be a fighter just like Mama, and then some shots that suggest Ghostface kidnaps Tatum.
If you hurt her, I'm not going to hurt her until you're here to see it.
Gail Weathers appears from a car that has Chad in it. Gail tells Sidney,
let's unmask this fucker.
Call back to the two of them teaming up to unmask the killer at the end of the 1996 film. We see Chad and Mindy here sitting in a bar. In every shot in this trailer, you'll notice when the phone rings, the light flickers. Even though it might not in the scene, it seems like a post-production effect. It's pretty cool in the editing of the trailer. Celeste O'Connor's character hides behind a bar, and then we hear this voice.
All your friends died for just being near you.
This is the voice of Dewey, David Arquette. Now, since Dewey died in the 5th film, this must be the killer using Dewey's voice to taunt Sidney, which is interesting because Scott Foley has also been confirmed to return somehow in this film as Roman Bridger, the Stab franchise director and half-brother to Sid from Scream 3, revealed to have been the one who mentored Billy Loomis. Roman also died, so I'm wondering if he might just be coming back similarly in voice form. Mindy and Chad tussle with Ghostface. I like how Mindy smacks him with a pan in this kitchen. Mark gets tackled by Ghostface from what looks like like the other side of a plastic sheet and seems to get suffocated, but then we see some blood spraying up, so maybe he's gonna die here. Maybe he's gonna get seriously wounded. Sid runs up the main street past East Cooper Avenue, maybe a reference to Cece Cooper, Sarah Michelle Gellar's character from Scream 2. Sid looks at the security app on her phone to see Ghostface pounded on the wall of the office where Tatum is, and she tells her daughter to shoot the killer through the walls. We see here in the office that this film is set in the month of November. Tatum seems to shoot the killer, but when Sid tells her to double check with the headshot, just as Sidney did to Billy at the end of the 1996 film, Ghostface springs back up and attacks. Now the trailer has just a rapid montage of violence. We see Celeste O'Connor's character running for it, then some bloody body getting dragged away, then Ghostface dumping gasoline all over Stu's house as he promises to burn it all down, and then Sidney screams "mother" as she shoots, and then closing out what I assume will be the opening sequence of the film, Ghostface walks away from the Mocker house as it blazes. Over the Scream 7 title, we see the Ghostface eyes and mouth formed in the smoke, and then
This is gonna be fun.
yeah, that's the voice of Matt Lillard as Stu again, but unlike the voice of Dewey, Stu's voice does not sound like it's coming from a voice box. So is this just some audio that was pulled from the 90s, just inserted in this trailer? Or is something gonna happen in this movie? Look, Stu is definitely dead. This is not the type of franchise with any supernatural phenomena that allows people to come back to life. I don't think some resurrected form of Stu is gonna end up being the killer if they're teasing him this hard in the trailer, but I do think it's gonna end up being someone connected to Stu, like maybe a sibling or a cousin or a half brother, hopefully not a twin brother. But Stu himself, no way. We just got Matt Lillard unmasked in Five Nights at Freddy's, which was really a reference to Scream and I guess to James Gunn's Scooby-Doo. I don't think they're gonna do that here, but someone with a Stu connection and then maybe a second killer who's gonna be someone on the inside whose face we're seeing throughout this trailer. Hey, maybe Joel McHale's character could be secretly related to Stu in some way. Comment down below with your theories and check out my Easter egg breakdown of the original Scream here. And a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Bro, for supporting us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.